Today, I'm going to a harvest festival on a farm. And you might think that's a very appropriate place to give thanks for crops and produce. But this festival and this farm are rather different. The harvest here is people. If harvest is about the miracle of growth, there are few places where it could be better observed than at Whitton Rosser Farm in the Vale of Glamorgan. During the last 5 years here, people have matured, people have been changed, and people have had their vision widened. And it all started as the result of a good gift. The gift came from Bob and Ethel Huggard.
This was my husband's idea. You see, we lived in the Swansea Valley in Ystwyth. We moved from Reading to Ystwyth, thought we'd retire. So he was looking around to see what he could do with the money. So we couldn't find nothing that he really wanted to do there. He didn't see the real needs there. He was looking for special people to do the ideas he had. So we went to one Easter Monday, the Newport Road Methodist Church, and John Stacy-Marks was there.
And the idea was that they would like to give to some organisation, but I think the church was their main target. They would like to give to the church a farm, and then I distinctly remember this Mr. Bob Huggard saying, "Go away and dream."
The Huggards had donated substantial sums to other community and homeless projects in South Wales. Now they were looking for a different kind of vision, though sadly Bob was to die before it was realised.
I've always felt it was very important that people ought to have contact with nature and the countryside, because my origins and background was in the countryside, and I had a very happy childhood, and I know how much the countryside has meant to my faith as much as anything else, to my appreciation of the world around us and so on. I've always dedicated my ministry to inner city, because that's where I felt the greatest needs were. To have the opportunity to link the two would be absolutely marvellous, and when this idea of a farm came on stream, then what about setting up a permanent resource that could be used by people from the inner city, families, children, older people, and you know, somewhere where they could not just go and look at it and sort of pat the animals, but actually get involved and learn about how things tick and how the world moves.
Now John had to sell that vision not only to the Huggards, but to the Methodist Church. Despite some initial scepticism, he managed to gather together a group who formed the Amelia Trust. Tony Ford was one of them.
I think, as far as I'm concerned, it was an opportunity for the church to go out to meet the people, who by and large had ceased to come into the church to meet the church in that way. I've always considered this not just an outreach of the church, but a church without a doorway in the traditional sense.
To this church without a doorway, people began to come, things began to happen. The farm began to develop a distinctive community life. And before long, all kinds of community groups were helping to make the idea flourish.
My job is to work alongside adults with learning difficulties who have, on the whole, been living in various institutions. And some people who have been living at home and now looking for things to get involved in as adults.
I come here twice a week, Tuesday and a Friday, and what it is, I had an interest in the farm a few months back, last year, and then they asked me, would you like to come down for a day, and I said yes, and since I've come down.
My role is to help find the opportunities to get people involved in acting as volunteers here in their own right. We're particularly proud of the work we've done around developing the herb gardens. If you'd come here 2 or 3 years ago, in the middle of winter, you'd have found teams of volunteers labouring away, laying the paths, digging the beds, and it's only now, when you're getting so many years on, you start seeing the fruits of your labours.
Volunteers have been responsible for shaping not only the grounds, but also the philosophy at Whitton Rosser.
We're a voluntary group. It's mixed ability. There's adults with learning difficulty join, and there's, well, anybody who wants to get involved really can come up and get involved. we are trying to get enough produce together so that we can actually sell stuff as well, which is where the polytunnel comes into use. It's basically about giving people the confidence to try things new. A lot of people have been deprived of that through institutionalisation and things, and it's given them the confidence to have a bash, see that they've got the skills, they've just never had the chance to use them. This is our 5th year here now, and this was a field, and the fact that people come up here and comment, you read the visitors' books about how pretty the gardens are looking and things, it just gives up people such a sense of pride, it's great.
Word began to spread about the farm's work and its need for helpers.
Well, I heard through church about the Amelia Trust and about them needing volunteers, and I thought I would come and see what it's like and give it a go. Well, I work behind the counter in the coffee bar, and I also do all the shopping for the coffee bar and see to all the stock and everything. When you see all the different types of youngsters that come down and the way they're helped in the environment, when you see the looks on their faces, when you see the animals, it's wonderful to see.
Not all the volunteers were so willing initially. An important part of the farm's work is to give purpose and worth to children who've experienced difficulties in life, which have had an effect on their attendance at school.
The majority have an element of behavioural problems, some more so than others. Some have simply had a very, very hard time, really no behavioural problems at all, but very low self-confidence, low self-esteem. But it seems to be across the board that youngsters with behavioural problems or without such distinct behavioural problems need to rebuild on their self-confidence and their self-respect, and that's what we try to do here.
Are we talking about children who, by and large, you feel society might have written off?
Certainly some of them have been written off, others simply need a helping hand to get back in the right direction. And again, by giving them small tasks, usually practical or craft orientated, where they feel they are genuinely achieving something, that is the way forward for them.
Gwen Steele feels the farm gives people space, an experience of care and a feeling of achievement.
They learn that they are valued as people. It really does a great deal to improve their self-esteem. It makes them feel that they can achieve things. They often come up here with very low self-esteem and they go back feeling a lot better and able to succeed in a school environment. We work with young people who perhaps don't attend school or are having problems attending school, and they go and they stay and they succeed.
James was introduced to the farm by his social worker.
It's made a lot of difference, it have, yeah. Like before, I just used to stay at home, be bored and all stuff like that, get into trouble when they didn't like it. So then social worker said, if you want to, go and work at the farm. So like, this is where I am now, working up here. I've been working up ever since. I'd say like a fence wants fixing, we'll do that, I'll do that. And anything really, boardwalks, in a nature trail, what else, building.
I get increasingly concerned about the amount of money that is being set aside for building new prisons. It's terribly frustrating, I think, to see lives being spoiled because there isn't the resources and the money made available to people at the earlier stages of their lives, but we're building prisons to catch them in later on in life. That I find terribly frustrating, terribly sad, terribly short-sighted, and I can't understand why politicians can't see that it's much better to do something for somebody earlier on in their lives than it is to pick up the pieces when it's too late.
Before I used to get in a lot of trouble, a lot of bother, but now I've calmed down and I've gone into trouble once.
Ralph's story shows how one problem can lead to another. He's dyslexic and hasn't been to school since he was 14.
He obviously really was very distressed if you tried to make him to go to school. So, and he then just stayed in bed, basically, got up in the afternoon and, he'd watch television or...
What effect did this have on the rest of the family?
Awful, really, wasn't it, Ralph? Do you agree? It wasn't good at all. It was very difficult. I mean, they were trying, Andrew and Evelyn, that's his mother and father, were trying to get him to go to school and he wouldn't go, and really, it was terrible.
Ralph was brought to the farm by his educational welfare officer, but his grant-maintained school wouldn't fund a tutor for him there. Now he goes to the farm 2 days a week, free of charge, and sees a big difference in his attitude.
How did you feel about yourself?
Shitty, like, oh, excuse me. I just don't really care.
And when you first went to the farm, what kind of things did you do there?
Worked hard. Just building things, like mending things, digging big pits, like, just do loads of physical work, like, the farm just brings me up, like, I get up in the morning, a bit dopey in the mornings, and like, by the time I get to the farm, I've woken up just about, and then it's just working and having a laugh with the people who are there. They're all nice people at the farm, like the people who work with me. I think it's a good place. I'm glad someone left it there for lots of children with similar disadvantages like me, you know, to work for. Like, just helps people, like, helps all sorts of people, helps all people which is, apart from slow learners, like, helps people which are disabled and just a bit messed up, like.
Since he's been at the farm, his health is very much better. He's much fitter. That's the first thing. But mentally, it's even more so. There aren't the rows with his parents that there were more or less continuously. It's much better atmosphere at home. And, you know, there's just a vast improvement all round.
Take young people away very often from, even for a day at a time, from their peer pressure and all the influences. Give them the opportunity to feel useful, give them the contact with nature and the countryside, you know, as like sunsets and rainbows and animals and trees and cycle of the seasons. Give them something adventurous to do because, you know, let's face it, going out in the wet and the wind and the snow can for some people be a totally new experience. Give them the workshops and all the training that we can do there. It seems somehow that the space, the skills, the care, begins to give people back their confidence and self-esteem and gives them a new vision on life.
One of the practical ways in which youngsters learn skills is through working in wood. The Trust sells garden furniture and makes items for use on the farm. Kerry Norris, the workshop manager, has found that in helping others, he has himself been helped.
I was unemployed when I first came to the farm on a scheme. And I've been taken on, and now I'm the workshop manager, and it's going quite well for me at the moment.
So, how do you feel about the farm?
Well, I think, well, it's unique, but one isn't enough. And, you know, you need a lot more of these sort of setups, because a lot more people benefit this way, I think, than the normal way.
Woodworking is only one of the businesses and separate units that operate on the site. There's a pottery, and there's a unit which deals with nutritional science, producing some food for the snack bar and helping people to gain confidence in a kitchen setting.
All right.
One of the most successful enterprises has been the silk screen printing business.
I couldn't believe how lucky I was to get a job down here. You know, it certainly makes a change from working on an industrial estate or that sort of atmosphere, and it's just great.
Had you worked with people with learning difficulties before?
No, I haven't, no.
So what sort of learning experience has that been for you?
Well, initially, before I started, it really gave me quite a lot of concern. I wasn't sure how I was going to actually deal with it, but it's been tremendous. It really has. It's been an ongoing learning experience. You know, yeah, it's really been excellent.
What have you learnt about people with special needs?
That they're a lot more capable than people think they can be. Certainly more before I got involved with it.
Lovely. That's excellent.
That's it, really. It's just the actual capabilities are, you know, more or less the same as anyone else's, given the opportunity.
So how has the business here progressed?
Well, we started in late 1994. It's been set up as a community cooperative. So everyone that comes to work here is a member of that community cooperative with equal voting rights. And it's spread through word of mouth. We do commercial work. We take in orders, small orders. We specialise in small runs of T-shirts, sweatshirts, aprons, anything like that. And it's really progressed quite well. We managed to show a tiny profit last year, so that's encouraging.
From where you stand and work here, you have a chance to see some of the wider aspects of the farm's operation. What sort of shop window do you think it is for the Christian church?
I couldn't think of a better one. It works, and it works for all sorts of different people, regardless of their own sort of religion or beliefs. I just think it's an excellent idea.
Not all the people who come here have problems or special needs. Lots of people come just for an inexpensive family day out in the countryside. The idea was always to make the countryside accessible to urban children, and school visits are an important part of the programme. Nature walks and a pond area give lots of opportunities for teaching. Contact with animals is a new experience for many of the children who visit. Brenda Drew is the resident farm warden.
I always say to people, don't just look at the animals, but watch the animals and learn their funny ways, because I walk around, I talk to the animals, and they almost talk back to me.
Does it give you a kind of a special pleasure to introduce kids who've never had any contact with animals to this sort of environment?
Yeah, it's lovely watching their faces, how they light up. It's like when we had blind teenagers here, a year or two back, and they felt over the donkeys because they like to feel everything, also sniff at things. And they felt the donkeys, and then we ended up with a shire horse. Well, the look on their faces when they had to put their hands on top of the shire horse, which they couldn't reach its head, and the excitement when their people come and pick them up, the sheer, you just couldn't explain. They just couldn't tell their people quick enough how big this horse was. They were trying to sort of pace it out.
Sometimes longer residential stays are possible for groups. And one of the jobs that's been done by volunteers is converting old farm buildings into hostel accommodation. One organisation that has used the facility is the Salvation Army's Oasis Group for children who are affected by or infected with the HIV virus.
We've taken up this special work with the children because we felt that it was something that needed to be done. We thought that to have the children in a place like this, it would be easier to keep a tag on them. And also there's the interest of the animals. Some of them probably have never seen animals before, and certainly have never been on a holiday. And those infected by AIDS probably won't have another holiday.
What kind of advertisement do you think this farm is for Christianity?
Oh, I think it's a marvellous one. Yes, I really do. And I think that we have a minister of the gospel who runs it. I think that's very advantageous too. I think it's ideal.
Philip Helmore's school has spent a fortnight here.
My Devon is an all-age school with just over 80 pupils, a broad age range, 3 to 19, catering for children with mild, moderate, severe and specific learning difficulties. We have some children with autistic tendencies, and we also have children with profound and multiple learning difficulties.
How useful is a facility like this for the kind of work you do?
Well, it's marvellous. It's in this particular context, it's helping children to acquire work-related skills. They're working on their own, they're taking some responsibility for what they're doing, and of course they're enjoying this marvellous setting, which is on our doorstep.
We haven't got a woman. Dorothy Hounsell came here first with a school group and then returned as a volunteer.
My husband died 3 years ago now, and I decided I would retire from school. And wanting something else to put in its place, I told John that I would give him a few hours. The few hours became 2 days. 2 days grew into longer sessions, and I've become more and more involved.
Her background in education made her an ideal person to develop the study centre and work with school groups. Now she has seen the value of being part of the farm community.
Last year, I found that I had breast cancer, which unfortunately had already spread into the lymph glands. And this year, I now find that they have gone into the bones as well. So for the last few weeks, I've not been able to do anything very much at all.
So you've had a tremendous amount to come to terms with over the last few years. You lost your husband, you've changed your job, in terms of your personal health and so on. How has working at the farm here as a sort of a constant helped you through all those changes?
I think the word constant is probably really at the root of it all, because it has become part of the family. My own family live away, and I've become friends with many of the people here. Very wide range of people I had not met before, people I had not mixed with before, and every one of them really has become a friend. And also it's given me the opportunity to give something back to society, which I think has been very important to me. And because of my involvement with the church, I feel it's a very important part of life.
The therapeutic aspect of the farm has also helped June and David Davis.
David has been poorly for 3 years. He had more or less a nervous breakdown, but with other complications. And because of his age, which was before he was 60, it appeared that we fell into a gap where there wasn't anything really available for somebody of this age group.
Now David makes a weekly visit to the farm, something June describes as a godsend.
He seemed a different person when he came home, because he had been doing a job that was useful, perhaps just counting the pea sticks or putting a little bit of paint on something. Anything within his capabilities, but it seemed as if that was good for him, because it was making him feel useful and needed.
What did you enjoy doing most?
I think it was the bowls.
And how did you find the other people there?
Very friendly.
And would you say that it's helped you a lot?
Yes, definitely.
So, with all that it does, how does the farm match up to the aim of a church without a doorway?
It's been one of the revelations, really. You know, the traditional view is the church is here, why aren't you coming into us? And I think I've now begun to appreciate that really what the church has to do is to go out where the people are. And certainly that's been an increasing conviction through the 4 or 5 years I've been associated with the Trust.
I hope that a lot of what we are doing, people will come back in years to come and say thank God for the opportunity, the platform, the second chance, the confidence that was given, the new start, and in some instances possibly the new faith that was founded.
I think God is at work in the world, and this is a very specific way in which he is at work. There are services, there are harvest festivals and Christmas services, and they're deeply moving, but I think John's philosophy, and indeed theology, is that you don't thrust religion down people's throats. You live it out in the community, and you offer the love of God.
I believe that we were fortunate to get the money we had to be able to do this, and I believe that God, in his goodness and wisdom, he has turned around and he's guided us. He guided us to John Stacy-Marks. When I go up there and I see the little children, and I see the handicapped, and I see some of the children that go along the walks there in these wheelchairs, and I see the little children on the swings. If we had bought a painting, a very expensive painting, and put it away, locked it away, that wasn't any good. This is a living picture, isn't it?